welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn Doors and Corners, I mean, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach.
And tonight we have a direct follow-up, so to speak, from last week. We are doing Punisher Warzone 2008. Quite a year, by the way, for comic book movies.
Oh, right. There's a lot of times when I'll say, "Oh, tonight we've got a special one," and this is like, I kind of want to say it for this one, but not necessarily for the best reasons.
Yeah.
This movie is the lowest earning Marvel film of all time to this day.
It's like worldwide, like 10 million, barely over 10 million.
Howard the Duck earned more than this movie.
Oh, Elektra made more than this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad movie.
It was really bad. And I will go ahead and say that this movie is better than Howard the Duck and is better than Elektra.
I would agree.
It made far less money. And for anybody listening to this, where they're just like, oh, maybe I'll actually be able to follow along on this one, or maybe this is a movie that I might want to see. Holy crap, is this one of the goriest, most violent movies you will ever see in your life?
Yeah, I knew going into this that I had the reputation, and there were 2 or 3 times where I was just like, oh, they just did that. Okay.
I wouldn't say that it crosses into stuff like the Saw movies, but it is gratuitous for the sake of gratuity. And it's one of the few movies where I'm actually like, okay with it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that this movie crossed that line, or like tippy-toed over it once or twice, as far as like me being okay with it personally. But I also understand what they were going for. Like there's a version of this Punisher in the comics, like very much so. So this was not some indulgence or some kind of off the rails, like, wait, this isn't anywhere. Like it's in the comics.
Yeah. This is very, very heavily influenced by a run of the Punisher called Punisher Max. And the Punisher Max series is no holds barred, just grotesque, violent, disgusting, hedonistic, disturbing comic book series. And I read pretty much all of Punisher Max at one point in my life, probably about 6-7 years ago. And I haven't seen this movie since like 2009, right? So I didn't realize just how close to the comic books this is, to the point of where I honestly think that this might be one of the most accurate comic book movies ever made.
Okay. I mean, you've mentioned that to me before. I have not read any of those. It's definitely not a... Well, I've talked about this in other episodes before. I respect the heck out of comics, and I do enjoy the themes and the characters, but I'm definitely the guy who's knows way more about characters based on their representation in movies and television. I've read a smattering of comics. I've actually read quite a few novelizations of comic arcs, specifically Batman and Superman arcs that I've enjoyed quite a bit. But
some of those are quite good.
Yeah. But you're definitely the expert, at least between the two of us, on the printed form of these heroes.
And The Punisher is one of those that I read more than others. It's a guilty pleasure comic for me. I remember I told this story last week, but I'm going to reiterate it, abridged. My sisters used to go to the mall a lot or other such places, and I got to go to Borders bookstore and I got to just read some of the graphic novels, and I gravitated towards Punisher because that was about the time that the Punisher Max publication was going on, and they had the collections there and things, and I got to read these dark and gritty, disturbing, blood and nudity filled comics, and such a bad boy. And so the result, especially me going back and revisiting some of them, is that the Punisher is one of those characters and runs that I have read more than almost anybody else. Like, I've read a lot of Batman, a lot of Superman. I've read collected arcs of other things, like the big Marvel events, things like Civil War and Dark Reign and Dark Avengers and stuff like that. I went and read through those on the comic books apps when those were first coming out. And so I have read quite a bit, but of singular singular character runs, Punisher is up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have flipped through 2 or 3 Punisher comics, and just to kind of get an idea of the art style, and that's it for me. It's yeah, it's interesting because I like the character very much, but I think part of it was I thinking this out loud, so I apologize for meandering, but I was raised in a home where there wasn't a lot of, like, my parents loved Superman, but comics in general, they kind of just viewed as, I was put it this way, I was pushed towards more classic literature heavily by my parents, and I'm glad because I know a lot about classic literature, and I appreciate it very, very much. But except for Superman, because they just loved Christopher Reeve so much, and that was such a great example in their eyes, and I actually completely agree, to a growing boy. It wasn't until I got older, and by the time I got older, I mean, I was in the army, then I got married very quickly, and I was, just life caught to the point where I just didn't have that window when I was younger was never really open for me, and then when it was open, I had kind of moved on to the point in life where I couldn't sit and do that as much. So I wonder if that's part of why I just never jumped on that bandwagon, even though I enjoyed comic book characters as a kid very much.
Yeah. I just didn't have a lot of access as a kid to comics. Like, I would get some from, like, family friends, or my oldest sister would buy me comic books sometimes for, like, birthdays and such. I even have one that might be worth some pretty good money in the near future. But my dad grew up with comic books to the point of where he had some comics that if he hadn't sold his collection in order to buy a guitar in the late 70s, oh boy, would that be worth quite a lot of money. He likes to say that he'd prefer not to think about it. We're talking potentially millions of dollars worth of comics. He had stuff like Fantastic Four #1, first appearance of Galactus, first appearance of Silver Surfer, Thor #1, things like that. And he also read a lot of Spider-Man comics. He had the death of Gwen Stacy. He had the first appearance of the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. And he had the first appearance of the Punisher.
It's so weird whenever I think about that he started as a Spider-Man villain. I mean, we talked about this last week, the anti-villain versus anti-hero.
A Spider-Man antagonist. And people really liked his character. They found him compelling. And he developed into what is labeled today in some circles. Most still think of him as an anti-hero, and, it fits well enough. But if you're going to categorize it, the title of anti-villain is a good one, which is a character with noble intentions who carries out their nobility with villainous methods, which very much fits for the character of Frank Castle.
Well, and what's interesting is that this film, it surprised me. So, did you see this in theaters, or did you see this on video later?
This was 2008, so I didn't have a car yet. So I think I believe that yo ho, Watched it on my computer.
Okay. Because this was, I saw the Thomas Jane Punisher in theaters. I enjoyed it very much. I remember actually following at that point too, following the news about film stuff meant like reading magazines. There were blog posts on websites, but really following the sequel, the Thomas Jane sequel it was in active development for quite a long time. And
yeah,
I think the reason why this movie completely went off the radar for me was, one, as soon as Thomas Jane dropped out, because he was such a big part of why I loved the 2004 Punisher. Once he dropped out, I just kind of lost interest immediately. I was just like, all right. So they're just, and then when it came out, the reviews, it actually weren't savage on this movie, but they definitely weren't kind to it. It was very much a mixed to negative general consensus in the review space. But I just never, my wife at the time was just not interested. And this came out, I was actually up in Oregon at that point. It was just, kind of passed me by for a multitude of reasons. And then I just never looked back on it. And so I watched this for the first time yesterday. And I got to say, though, I'm glad I did. This, to me, kind of feels like it. So I actually just published this today, even though this recording won't come out for a while. Published Spawn today. And watching this movie made me think of Spawn in a good way. That there's actually quite a bit in this film that I didn't love, but there was a lot more in it that I enjoyed than I thought I would. My reaction, I anticipated just thinking this movie would just be one of the bombs, one of all right, this would be a fun one to review because it's so bad we can make fun of it. And as much as there's plenty in it that we'll talk about as we watch it, there is a lot that I'm like, I like what they're going for there. And I was going to say, one of the things is Ray Stevenson, the late, great Ray Stevenson, he passed. Was it late last year or early this year? I forget.
I believe it was late last year.
Okay, so late 2023. But he was, I liked him very much. He was just a great guy in general. And I really liked that they tried to blend a nobility about Frank, but also not shying away from the fact that he has murdered a lot of people. Trying to that is a fine line to walk. And because this movie deals with him down, he's been Punisher for a while, you can hit that more interesting. The origin story, the Thomas Jane story, whenever it's an origin story, it kind of just inherently tweaks just how you feel about it, because you kind of think of the character in a different way because they're learning, because they're still very raw in whatever traumatic event, triggered the origin story. And you tend to judge a character differently at the very beginning versus once he's been going for a while. And I actually, a criticism of this film is I wish it had gone deeper into these themes, but the fact that it did scratch at them, I applaud it for very much.
Yeah, I would agree with that very much. I have a lot of things to say on that type of subject, but I think that we should get started.
Yes, we probably should.
This isn't the longest movie in the world, but, I had this movie marked as so bad it's good in our spreadsheet, and I think that it should instead be relabeled to orange. So we'll go ahead and get started here in just a second.
I don't think this is a good film objectively, but I do think that it deserves some props for sure. So I think I would agree. This isn't so bad it's good. This is not a Batman and Robin situation, not at all. And but it also, to be fair, it's I definitely want to talk about the internet's reaction to this film over the last couple of years and some of the research I did as I was preparing for this. So, but yeah, let's get going. You want to give us a quick rundown, Zach?
Always. This is Punisher Warzone. Came out in 2008. It is rated very much R. It is 1 hour and 43 minutes long. It was directed by Lexi Alexander, who is not a well-known director, but I am realizing very impressive human being. And the cast, we have starring Ray Stevenson, Dominic West, Julie Benz, Colin Salmon, Doug Hitchinson, Wayne Knight. And not a lot of those are going to be the most familiar names in the world, but there are some really good stinking actors here.
Yeah. I had totally forgotten Wayne Knight was in this. And it's funny that I think so many people recognize him but don't know his name.
Right?
You're like,
Wayne
this-
Knight actually sounds like kind of a badass guy. And it's Newman from Seinfeld. Or not Landry. What's his name in Jurassic Park? Nedry.
Nedry.
Dennis Nedry.
Didn't say the magic word.
The magic word. He's mostly known as being the comedic fat guy, even though he has actually lost quite a lot of weight and looks radically different today.
No, he was actually slimming down already in this film. I noticed. I mean, he's still a heavy guy, but I mean, he didn't have a ton to do in this film, but I thought he was genuinely good in this movie.
Oh yeah, I liked him a lot too. Very, very true to the character of Micro as well, because a lot of people gave the Oh shit! Get started.
We should. We'll talk about it when it happens. So yeah, we have an hour and 42-minute film here, so looking forward to it. We did. There is no theatrical cut. I mean, there is nothing other than the theatrical cut, I believe, for this film. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, we got an hour and 42 minutes, and we are gonna hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Play. Yes, but this movie came out in 2008, and 2008 is like the year of superhero movies. Like, and also just kind of the year of reboots in a lot of ways. And so one of the reasons why I didn't want to pay a lot of attention to this movie is that I was upset that it was a reboot. And I really liked the Thomas Jane one. So I was just like, this is going to be so terrible. And then I saw the trailer and I'm like, this is going to crash and burn.
Yeah,
So
I will say
but
the marketing for this film did not do it any favors.
well, in comparison to all of the other stuff coming out that year, Marvel and Lionsgate and all them realized that they had a lot of other hits on their hands. So they were just like, this can just go away. We'll take the loss on this one. But it was up against Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Hellboy 2, The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just some minor comic book movies in there. Had a little bit of influence.
The fact that one of the most, at the time, the highest earning video game, the highest earning comic book movie of all time, The Dark Knight, again, at the time, came out the same year as the lowest earning comic book movie of all time.
Well, it does really show you that it's. I mean, this year has kind of been like that. It's interesting how I'm not going to say volatile, but just unpredictable comic books at the theater can be, because for every Dark Knight, Iron Man, Avengers, you also have just these other movies that you're like, oh no, that nobody wanted to see that.
Yeah,
because this movie was made for roughly the same budget as a Thomas Jane movie, but yeah, I mean, 10 million worldwide, and you have to double your budget to break even, approximately in Hollywood once you take advertising into consideration. So this was a big write-off for Marvel.
Oh yeah, this was a huge tank. It's funny, it actually made more money in physical sales, like on DVD, Blu-ray, all that stuff, than it did in worldwide box office.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, as a gun guy, I'm kind of a mixed about Frank's arsenal, honestly. Parts of it I like, parts of it I kind of hate. But I do appreciate the pan over that they actually showed that he has many plates, meaning he swaps them out and, has like actual hard plates in his armor, which, when he gets shot multiple times by pistol rounds and takes them, that's totally believable. If you have a quality plate, 9mm, even 45, it hurts, but it's not going to kill you. It's not even close.
Yeah. And, let's see.
I heard that they just flashed on his vest there. I heard the director of this did not really like the symbol and actually was kind of trying to not have it in at all. And the studio was like, no, it's got to be in there. And so she was like, mostly her, they kind of made it as subtle and faded as possible, and it never appears anywhere else other than just on his flak jacket.
And that is correct. Even at this time, the Punisher symbol was becoming controversial, and it she didn't like it. She didn't want the controversy. She thought that it was kind of stupid. She thought that it looked stupid on a character like Castle, and I don't know. I disagree.
Yeah, no,
I think that
it's an
I think they
important
should
part of the
lean into
character.
it.
I mean, it's
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
The introduction of this cop, and I'm sorry again, I've seen this once, and I do not have everybody's names memorized. But the guy who's like kind of under, like behind the scenes, almost like Castle's partner in the police force.
Yes.
Soap. There he is. Soap.
Mhm. Martin Soap is actually a comic book character transferred over. There's a lot of minor comic book characters in this movie that you'd be surprised at.
Okay. But he was somebody who almost every scene he was in, I enjoyed him.
All right. And the use of cocaine in this movie. Oh my God. Everybody's on cocaine in this movie.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, just like kind of everybody's on cocaine. So,
well, and they were, I read this in a couple different, or heard this in a few different interviews and people talking about this film, that the director did pitch this as kind of an 80s style throwback in a way. And I just putting his part of me thinking like, so part of the 80s style throwback is the use of cocaine.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because, I mean, that was just everybody back then. At least according to Hollywood. It was just like, oh man, I think even like comedies back in the day, like Crocodile Dundee, it's like, oh yeah, it's a joke. He's doing coke. It's funny.
I mean,
it's like, okay.
Cocaine is still incredibly common, just everywhere in America. Really, it's just not often. Like, you ever been around a line cook? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but I think it's not as it's not the sexy Hollywood drug anymore.
Nope. It's just fuel. But man, this movie is pointed at as being some of the most egregious accents in movies.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so bad.
These guys are talking like they're doing a parody of a mob film right now, in my opinion.
Right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I feel like is a legitimate criticism, and I'll say about that. I know that the internet has a lot of, I mean, we were talking about this at the beginning, that I'm almost every video I could find discussing this film, retrospectives, making ofs, people wanting to, talk about it, was all just people who were like, either I came to love it or I've always loved it. It was very much in defense of this film. So there's by, absolutely a cult following of this film and a dedicated fan base. And I don't begrudge that at all. That's totally fine. I like a lot of movies that are, would make a lot of other people cringe. So I get it. But there are some things that I just think are objectively problems. And one of the big ones is I do think this movie suffers from just real tone issues, because it can't decide, and especially with the villains. I think Frank is played so straight, and then the villains are played like they are in closer to like a Batman and Robin, like a Joel Schumacher style film. I mean, obviously not the gore, but just the dialogue and the way that they're constantly. It's just it's this weird shift, because Frank is so serious, which I get, and then they're just like, it threw me off multiple times watching this, just going like, wait a minute, what movie am I watching? Am I watching a comedy right now, or am I watching a very serious action, gritty crime drama right now?
Right, dude, this just opening, okay?
Yeah,
like, holy crap. I mean, he just pops up, and it's all red. I love the color schemes in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
I hate this, by the way, so much.
Yeah?
Sorry, I just, like... Because Frank oscillates between legitimate, like, tactical strategy and then whatever the heck this is.
Right? And this is very unlike the comic book Punisher. This isn't the type of thing that you see, especially in the run that it's based on, the Punisher Max series. And so it was one of those things. I remember being in the previews, and I'm like, this is gonna suck.
I am glad they got that out of the way immediately. as far as like that, because I mean that to me for Frank's action is the most. I mean the RPG of the guy doing the backflip later in the film is definitely like a okay.
I love that.
But
there's actually a distinct reason for that, and I think it's great.
Yeah, but just the whole. I mean his gun choice is very Hollywood, and just the whole chandelier spinning, like he'd be dead. Like I'm sorry, like that's just.
Are you talking about just the movie in general for his gun choice, or just this sequence? Because I remember later in the movie, I kind of liked his gun choice.
No, it's I appreciate that this time the silver machine pistols,
Brevis.
whatever they were. No, the no, the submachine guns he had. Those. When he was hanging upside down.
Form of MP5.
Yeah, I hate those things. They just the fact that they're chrome and just. I just don't like.
Well,
no, his Berettas.
I don't. Make a little bit of sense because if he's stealing guns from mobsters, I'm just saying, if he's stealing guns from mobsters, he's probably going to get some chrome and gold plated stuff every now and again.
Yeah, no, that's a legitimate.
Like he can
point.
buy things legitimately, so it's like kind of a beggars and choosers, you know.
I hadn't thought of that. That is a legitimate point. I will admit. I just. Yeah, I mean, and even Thomas Jane had that stupid stainless steel slide Glock in the stock thing, last week. So it's not like
he had 1911s with compensators.
Yeah, so it's not like that movie was. But then he had just an awesome standard M4 with a 203 underneath it, and I appreciate
Which
the old classic.
The climax of this movie, he does have an M4 that's really well outfitted.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. This was like, oh my gosh, when I saw this.
Right.
Oh
well, again, the character of Frank Castle, if he could be said to have any superpower, it's his durability.
Yeah.
The guy just, I said this last week as well. One of my favorite tropes is man too angry to die.
Yeah.
And he just takes pain unlike anything, and that's something that all of the on-screen Punishers have really done well.
Yeah,
is showing Frank as a freaking pain sponge.
Yeah, I do love that he's still like looking at these guys, and he's still like kind of sniffling and like twitching his nose, and just like they keep that little gag up for a while, and I do think Ray Stevenson is great. I wish that he had gotten more like acting to do because he's a great actor. But
he doesn't say a word in this movie until 23 minutes in.
Really?
Huh.
But he has a presence like right there. He's just sitting in the car looking like you're telling story right there. You're informing the audience about this guy deeply with those bits of just watching him watch other people and stick a pencil up his nose to correct it and just like act almost annoyed by it.
Yeah. No, I love Ray Stevenson's Punisher. But I do want to talk about this guy for a second and a little bit of the parkour thing.
Yeah.
The parkour looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. It's on purpose because the director didn't like all the parkour stuff that had like taken over in the mid 2000s. It was everywhere.
Well, when did Casino Royale come out?
2004.
Okay, so it would have been a few years, but like that's what I remember that being kind of the beginning of Hollywood really being like, oh, this is so cool. We got to put it in all the action movies. Because that opening sequence was so iconic in that film.
Yeah. But this guy here, this black dude, he plays a character by the name of McGinty. And he's actually straight out of the comics. He came from Punisher Max, first printed Punisher number 7 in June 2004. Only 4 years before this. Really, it's a comic that I read. He's like part of a group of Irish mobsters, which is why he has this weird like semi-Irish accent through the thing on top of the Jamaican thing. And, they were like all these different mobsters going after a dead mobster's hidden treasure, and at the end Frank replaces the hidden treasure with a bomb and blows them all up. And he's this big, crazy, bombastic Irish Jamaican parkour black dude, and they're just like, yeah, let's use this guy in this movie. And he does. Just straight up.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I'm glad. It's like good for them for like putting all these little Easter eggs in here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like he's not really used in any meaningful way.
Hmm.
I want to go back just a tiny bit to when he goes over the fence. There are moments like I loved the fact that again, it's not a silencer that's dead quiet. Like we're using, a little crossbow thingy thing, and it's a little ridiculous how small it is. But then to get the other guy to come over,
that's what she said.
But then to use the other guy as essentially your like shock absorber to just jump over the fence and like take it, because that mean if you could hit, if you could nail that move, it'd work. Like letting somebody else take the impact. Like it just shows a level of awareness and like tactical thinking that I appreciate, but also a little bit of like kind of fun silliness in the idea that this is a comic book movie, so he's going to do some crazy stuff. Yeah, to me, it was like a really good mixture of. I mean, like, does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think of this scene?
So this part I thought was a little like I was like, oh, okay, they're actually keeping this a little bit tamer than I thought, and then it kept going. Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not seeing what we're seeing, is the villain of the thing, Billy Russo, getting thrown into a glass bottle recycler. And he is essentially getting crushed by these glass bottles as they're tearing up like everything on his body.
Yeah.
He does survive. He becomes the villain Jigsaw in an actually like comic book accurate version of Jigsaw, instead of as good as much as I really liked John Barenthal's Punisher TV series, the freaking Jigsaw aspect of Billy Russo in the second season was laughable. It's so stupid and embarrassing.
So I did not see this coming. The idea that one of the big kind of motivators for this Punisher would be the idea that he shot an undercover agent here, and just that would be a kind of a big emotional catharsis for the plot.
Well, that is a direct bleed over from the script that they were putting together for the sequel to Thomas Jane's Punisher. That was going to be the main crux, is that he's on his vigilante Punisher crusade against crime, and he accidentally kills an undercover cop for the FBI, which, if you recall from the previous movie, he was an undercover cop for the FBI.
Yeah.
So that would be a very impactful thing. He just killed himself. He just killed a brother. And so to have that be a motivator here, I think really smart idea, brings up a lot of interesting talking points and ideas that they never follow through with, which is just a problem in the superhero genre in general. Yeah. Bringing up really interesting, really heady ideas that they just leave behind.
Yeah.
I will never forgive all of the movies that do that. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Batman vs. Superman, Captain America Civil War. There's many, many more. I can keep going with it.
One of my stop there. Yeah, in the MCU, I feel like Age of Ultron was a big one that for me. I would have loved to explore.
That was the next one I was going to say.
Yeah, they teasing a good idea and then just like not trusting the audience to go there with you is frustrating.
Very, very.
I do like his lair down here. It's a
oh yeah,
it's a
I
fun.
love a good lair, villain lair or hero lair in comic book movies or adaptations.
Sometimes the effects are little, like when he throws that like French press or little coffee maker or whatever. I think sparks like he threw a block of magnesium at the wall.
No, I think that was a practical effect though.
Really?
I think so. The light, because it lit up, because that's one of the things I've been looking for recently in movies is pyrotechnics and lighting effects that are real, because they light up the world around it. And maybe I just imagined it, but I don't know. I thought that looked real.
Okay. But it is interesting. I also felt when I was surprised by a lot of things I watched this movie, just things I did. I kind of went into. I realized I went into this movie with a set of expectations that came from I don't know, just a combination of Reputation and my own.
Oh, yeah. Even
Whatever.
I was telling you, oh man, this is a rough one.
Yeah, but some of the stuff that I was like, okay, so he was when he went to his lair, the fact that he's just like walking down the street, like there's no attempt, it's not like he's Batman, like rooftops and shadows, and he's just strolling to the subway, and it's just here he's we know later the FBI knows what he looks like. Everybody knows who Frank Castle is. They know the Punisher is Frank Castle. He's just hanging out here. It's not like he's way off in the distance, just barely observing this thing. He's like 50 feet away. And
well, that's always been part of the character. Or I won't say always, but that has very commonly been part of the character. He doesn't really hide. Like, he doesn't make himself stand out, but he doesn't really hide because part of him kind of wants to be caught. He knows that he's a criminal. He knows that he will face the same judgment he passes on others. But until the day somebody really decides to act, he's going to keep going.
Yeah. Okay. And that's again where I realized that my idea of the Punisher is so informed by, a Thomas Jane movie and the Netflix series that there's aspects of the character that I just don't know about. So it's been interesting, listening to you, and kind of this movie introduced me to a side of the character that I just hadn't really, at least a level of the character I hadn't really looked at before.
Well, you have to take into account that these movies these characters will change so much over time. The character was first introduced into the 1970s. He had iterations through the 80s. He's had downright comedic interpretations in the past. There was big reinventions with like Punisher Warzone, or Punisher War Journals, which the previous movie was heavily inspired by. And then this one very much by the Punisher Max series and others. The John Barenthal Punisher was very much informed by more 2010s, where the Punisher was a much more controversial figure. And so that's one of the things that's talked about a lot, because this is the only Punisher that we've seen on screen that can really say to be doing punishing.
Yeah.
John Barenthal's, lots of action and violence, but it was very much missionality instead of just going after criminals for the sake of going after criminals. Outside of, like, I think you could say the beginning of the Punisher TV series, but even that was still kind of vengeance against the people who were part of the whole conspiracy.
Yeah. Instead of Frank being just angry at crime in general and just the world and just what it is, and he's kind of, it's him against everybody. Yeah, usually he's portrayed as more traditional. I've been wronged. I'm after the guy who personally hurt me somehow, and and then approaching it more with a modern special ops type vibe versus a little more of a classic, just angry soldier who just has skill and motivation.
Yeah, a man who has lost the patience to deal with overly corrupt justice systems, and is just willing to do what he believes is absolutely necessary in order to actually affect a change in organized crime.
Yeah.
Here we have the introduction of this character. His name is Paul Budansky.
I love calling cops Krispy Kreme MFers. It's just like, he says it with so much. I'm sorry, totally interrupted you. It just cracked me up.
No, you're fine, man. It's a hilarious line. But this is another character who is straight out of the comics, and his first appearance was actually in 2007. So they were like making this movie in late 2007. So they just kind of were like, oh, this character, like, they just used this character. Let's go. And pulled him out. He was a detective who's investigating Punisher stuff. His wife ends up getting shot and deeply injured while he's dealing with Punisher stuff. And he almost puts himself on the path of becoming like the Punisher himself, and Frank actually talks him out of it because Frank doesn't want people like him.
Yeah.
To be like him, I should say.
I appreciate that I'm assuming this is from the comics. I have no idea, but that he struggled with basically not being a great cop himself in the past, and
the to be honest, I don't remember that much about his character. I mostly remember that like the one that he appears in is one of the most brutal Punisher comics in existence. It has Frank getting gravely injured, and he was rescued by a woman whose husband he killed, and he was a terrible, evil, abusive husband, and she was like thankful for it, and she decides to like help him and get vengeance on the people who hurt him, who were also people who hurt her in the past, and she was kind of a lady Punisher, but she also had cancer and was dying and was like so deeply traumatized that she couldn't feel anything anymore, and she hated herself, and it gets really messed up. Like the ending of the story is literally her like she has sex with Castle and then kills herself. Like
okay.
In the act.
Oh, that's awful.
It's just it's not a comic I ever want to read again. The actor here, however, his name is Colin Salmon. Been in a lot of things. I recognized him from stuff like the first Resident Evil film. He gets cut up by a laser fence really gruesomely that he didn't need to get cut up by. He could have taken 2 more steps back.
Wasn't he in the first couple seasons of Arrow?
I don't know if that's him. Let me double check on that.
That's what I thought of him as the guy who's like with Oliver's mom, or something like that. I know I've seen him in stuff. He's one of those faces that I'm like, I've seen him, but
I'm not seeing Arrow on here. I think that was an older guy. No, it was him. You're right. That was Walter Steele on Arrow, which the director of this actually went on to do more of.
Yeah, she did a lot of good television, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite a bit. But yes, I remember him from stuff like Alien versus Predator. He gets killed by a predator.
That's right. Yeah, that's.
He's just. But funny thing, he's British. Okay, if you watched him in anything, he has his natural British accent, and his American accent is not great in this movie because they have a problem with accents. He was actually very seriously considered in 2003 for the role of James Bond.
Well, and he's in a Bond film. I'm sure of it.
Yes, Die Another Day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, because he plays like one of the guys like working at MI6, right? Like one of the desk guys, basically.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I just saw it on his IMDb profile.
Yeah. No, I like, yeah, he's had a very distinct voice. I'm almost positive he was like one of the guys like on the radio from The Office, like out to James Bond. But yeah.
The guy in the chair.
The guy in the chair. But yeah, when this came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea he was in this. And I had forgotten his name even. Yeah,
Hello, Newman.
But he has a somberness about him. I mean, he has 1 or 2 little comedic beats, but he really does have that. Like I feel like he and Ray Stevenson are on the same page about the type of film that they're in. But you know, they're both playing it very straight, and then the villains are just in a totally different movie.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I really like him. He does play Micro quite well. Micro is one of those characters who, like, in one run, Frank kills him because he starts working for the CIA and does some like bad stuff for the CIA and stuff like that. But they always end up bringing him back. Portrayed in a very, very different way by a very, very different actor in John Barenthal's Punisher. But yeah, he's really good in this. He's really understated. He has this just, you can see he like kind of cares about Frank Castle.
Yeah.
But he doesn't it's like it's unreciprocated almost. even though it actually kind of is, but he's not getting it reciprocated. They're almost like an old couple, but
Yeah.
like a sad old couple.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed their dynamic when they were on screen. The ending I thought was effective, and then the kid who kind of is brought in like halfway through that Micro brings in is also. I mean, the little bit that he got, I thought he was very effective too.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little performances in this movie that are actually very good. I was surprised. So the doctor here, I have no idea what his name is, but I just recognized him. He was in Heroes, I believe. Is one of the maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. He's one of those guys I know.
I think of somebody else. He's not the guy from Heroes. He might have been in Heroes, but he's not the main Indian.
No. He wasn't the main guy. Not the. Yeah. No, I'm thinking of. But he's just one of those. You see his face, and he's one of those faces he's been around.
Hinder Suresh.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, he's gonna die. You just immediately know he's not walking out of this room.
Right? Like it. Oh, I hate this kid's hair. By the way, it just
Yeah.
killed me. I think I can find this guy.
I actually love the older guy here, like the uncle or the brother. I'm not sure what character he is, like the older guy here that's balding. He does a great job of just really being like Jigsaw's like right-hand guy.
Brian, I'm going to need you to take a much closer look at that plastic surgeon if they show him again, okay? I'm going to need you to take a much closer look at him.
So should I really know who this guy is?
Oh, yes. Are they not going to show him again?
Oh my gosh. So because we're watching this on Amazon, I love that you can just hover and get the IMDb.
Oh, dang it.
Oh my gosh. It's
Yeah.
Oh. I did not. So when was season 1 of The Expanse?
So different.
Yeah, well, he's so much younger. Because season 1 of The Expanse is what, 2000?
10 years after this came out?
Yeah. Wow. I did not recognize him at all.
Mm-hmm. So, for those of you who don't know, the TV show The Expanse is incredibly important to Brian and I. In fact, Doors and Corners comes from the book and, to an extent, the TV show The Expanse, which also stars previous Punisher star Thomas Jane, who speaks the immortal words of Doors and Corners, kid. And one of the main characters on that show, who was killed off, unlike his book counterpart, due to him doing some rather nasty things in his personal life, by the name of Cass Anvar, which is that actor we just saw, who plays the character of Alex Kamal, the pilot of the Rocinante, the hero ship of The Expanse.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, he looks very different. He always has a beard in that show.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him without a beard.
Right? I didn't know he had such a cleft chin.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the makeup here.
Yeah.
The makeup here for Jigsaw.
Especially his left eye. Really just like, and that eye socket and that whole part was just, yeah, good job. Whoever did that makeup did a good job because it is disturbing. It's
a great design. And again, if you go watch Punisher Season 2, where they bring in the character of Jigsaw, or at least like the ugly, quote, ugly version of Jigsaw, played by the absolutely far too attractive, like,
but to say,
as a 100% straight man, and has the absolutely beautiful specimen that is Ben Barnes.
Yeah.
And their version of ugly, scarred up. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
He's got 2 cuts on his face. I always think of him as Prince Caspian still, even though that was just one role he ever played.
Yeah. No, I do too. He tried to base his accent on Inigo Montoya and just sounded ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which is why it was missing from the third one. But yeah, Ben Barnes is fantastic as Billy Russo. So stinking good. But his what do you call it? Like, disfigurement as Jigsaw is a freaking joke.
Yeah, it really is. He looks like he cut himself shaving badly, and then he'll be fine in a day or two. So this whole sequence, horrific. Yeah, this whole sequence is like, this attendant, this like the guy, the large man who's taking care of Billy here, and it's just like
Jim.
That's right. No, sorry, it's what do they call him? Like Circus Jim?
Looney Bin Jim. Looney Bin Jim.
Looney Bin Jim. This is another actor who, like, I can't remember what he's been in, but I know he's been in other things.
Oh, no, this actually caught me off guard because I was sitting there thinking the same thing, and I was looking through his IMDb page, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was that. Oh yeah, he was that. And then I see one of the images because I remember, oh, he was in The Green Mile, you know. He was in like 24 for a couple episodes.
Yeah.
He was a voice and face in Far Cry 5, which I played the crap out of. And then I go further down and I get to the 90s, and he is a character by the name of Eugene Toombs. Eugene Victor Toombs, who appeared in 2 episodes of The X-Files. And he is perhaps their greatest creature of the week. The Boneless Man.
Really?
He squeezes into little spaces. He was in one of the 5th episode of the whole series. He sleeps and hibernates in a gross little mucus-covered nest for like 36 years at a time, and then he cuts the liver out of people who are in by crawling through their ventilation shafts. And he's disgusting and great creature. And the acting is so stinking good from him.
Yeah. So this genuinely caught me off guard. I'm like, I mean, at first I'm thinking like, all right, he's just gonna kill this guy. And then just like when we go full cannibal here, it's like, okay, all right, so we're doing this. I mean, and he is so dedicated to the crazy that he's got going on in this movie.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, wow. Oh man, but that's just
I honestly wonder if it's a reference to his character of Victor Toombs, because that was his thing. He would cut the liver out of people and eat it.
Yeah. Thing is, I'm not sure he had.
That's a personal me thing because I freaking love his acting in that movie.
Yeah,
as Victor Toombs.
He as much as I think that he doesn't realize. Well, maybe he knows the movie he's in, and Frank Castle is the movie he's in. But again, I will reference this many times. I'm sorry ahead of time, but I firmly believe
different movies.
That they are in different movies. The thing is, they're both doing a good job in the movies that they're in. Just nobody forgot to tell them that they're making the same movie.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I saw, they compared it to like trying to combine Hannibal Lecter and Jim Carrey's Riddler.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
But like this whole sequence is just like I will say the little girl they got for this movie. Yeah, the little girl they got for this movie does a really good job. And I do think the wife I feel like is kind of hit or miss, honestly. I don't mean that like
I don't like that actress, so I'm biased there.
Yeah.
Her accent is not great. Yeah. Her name's Julie Benz, and it's one of those things where whenever I see like, oh, it's Julie Benz, it's always said, oh, it's Julie Benz, and that's not her fault. Part of that is just because of her character in the show Angel and subsequently Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's just awful and evil, and I hate her so much. And however, if she was talking in her normal voice, you might recognize her from Halo 2 and Halo 3.
Who's she voicing them?
Miranda Keyes.
She's Miranda? Huh.
Correct.
I did not know that. Oh, it's funny as I'm like, well, I know she's not Cortana. I'm trying to think. I feel bad because I'm like, there's not that many more girls in that game. Which one is she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But,
I mean, I feel like, and part of it might be that I think the little girl is so much more effective as the kind of emotional Heather that Frank gets in this film. That she's just kind of this, all right. Well, if you weren't sure what gun that is, you can literally read the print on the slide. So that's a close-up.
Yeah. Very much so. Actually, it's a bummer Pat's not here. Isn't that like his gun?
Very similar, yes. Not exactly, but
yeah.
Beretta is featured heavily in this movie. There's a lot of Berettas.
Yeah, very.
No, so just because we're at a little bit of a slow point here, I will go back to guns in general. I hate machine pistols. I always have. I don't like them. Fully
What is
automatic,
the definition of a machine pistol?
like a handgun, just the size of a handgun that is fully automatic. Like the Silver Berettas that he dual wields and they fire fully automatic at a cyclical rate that is just stupid and makes them tactically useless.
Yeah,
And
we're talking microseconds and they're empty.
yeah, it's just because they don't have extended mags. It's just stupid. At least when Morpheus uses the Glock that's been modified with the extended mag in Matrix Reloaded, it's done. It looks correct. Like that gun actually fires some, and if it does it in slow motion, he can't keep it on target very long. So I appreciate that, even though he's in the Matrix.
Yeah,
so it's
I think that the one that pops out to me as being the most accurate is Skyfall. Very beginning, the guy with the depleted uranium rounds. He has the automatic. He has the machine pistol, and it's got the big extended mag. That's like the double drum extended mag.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
that would also help to control the recoil.
It would. All of what's funny is that as it empties out, it would get harder to control because it gets lighter. But I just, in general, it's just such a showy gun. But just I love very like practical, effective. Here's a Stargate reference for you. And I'm sorry, I'm talking over this funny scene, but the great when Colonel O'Neill is making his speech about this is a weapon of terror and this is a weapon of war. Talking about they did like this is for show. This is actually garbage. Nobody that actually wants to win would use this because this is something about psychology and being showy. And then this is actually something made to just to kill your enemy. And I am 1,000% in the I love firearms designed to do their job well, which is effectively take out targets. And I have
which is why I
no
think
patience.
The P90 should have had more acceptance.
Oh yeah, it should have. I have no love or nostalgia. Like, oh, it's so cool for like flashy silver impractical guns that just are designed to look cool and intimidate people.
And no gold-plated AKs if you ever win the lottery.
No, a lot of black guns and ones with camo paint jobs.
Oh, I'm a big fan of wood furniture myself.
I do like that too. But yeah, so anyways, I'll let that
scene.
Yeah, I'll let
brothers,
this
bad guy brothers.
Let's see. I'll save the gun rants to the end. I think that it's their relationship is actually, I think, well done. Like I think that their chemistry as actors and the writing about just they're both on the spectrum of insanity, obviously, and that I have no problem believing watching this movie they genuinely love each other. It's just strange because it's dialed to 11 all the time.
Yeah,
I do love the consistency of the little hand, the little like hand exercise thing he's got there, little squeeze machine. He's just constantly. He's got it till the very end of the film. He's just always like, gotta work out the hand. I gotta get my hand stronger.
I mean, he's been restrained for a while. Maybe he's atrophied a little bit. But one of the things that we did talk through also was his conversation with the wife. Frank's conversation with the wife.
Yeah.
Because that's where they introduce an interesting idea of like, he's out doing this. He's the Punisher. Oh. He made a mistake. He killed the guy. And she pulls that kind of who watches the Watchmen in the who punishes the Punisher. That's an interesting theme. That's an interesting thing. And
yeah,
they just kind of gloss over it and don't get back to it.
No, that is very near the top of the list of this film as for ideas that deserved more attention. You're right. Because I mean, just the line "Who punishes the Punisher" is a great line. Because the iconic line "Who watches the Watchers." I mean, that is.
Oh yeah, I used the Watchmen line, didn't I?
But that's kind of its origin. But that idea, I'm pretty sure. Am I crazy? I think there's an original series episode of Star Trek that either has that line in it or something similar to it.
Oh, I'd believe it. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I would definitely believe it.
But that concept, the idea that, who takes care of you? I mean, I was just literally watching Stargate SG-1 and the NID, the shadowy, civilian organization. Well, it's our job to keep an eye on the military. It's like, well, then who keeps an eye on you? I mean, that is a really legitimate thing to explore. And in comic books, I mean, especially with vigilantes, because we all love a vigilante when they're doing the right thing, right? When the only people who are suffering are the people who we know are bad dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you create that perfect scenario, you can keep cheering for somebody doing some pretty reprehensible things as long as he's doing it to the wrong people. But it is a fantasy. I mean, obviously these movies are, but when you try to apply the ideas to real life, then yeah. Anyways, I agree. I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry, but I wish there is a version of the ideas of this film. There's a serious version of this movie that's a little bit longer and has a little more patience that could have been a genuine classic.
Would have been a contender.
It would have. Ow.
And it's kind of interesting. Time of recording, the concept of vigilantism is currently being debated a little bit more, and currently in the news. A CEO of a prominent healthcare provider, healthcare insurance, I should say, was killed, murdered on the street by a guy who obviously very much premeditated it. And a lot of people are actually cheering the death of this guy and saying that it wasn't an assassination or a murder so much as an act of vigilantism. Because of all of there are people online sharing these stories of how that guy's company that he was the CEO of ripped them off and, did just these terrible things. And they didn't give healthcare coverage to things that were necessities because they didn't consider it a necessity, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm talking thousands upon thousands upon thousands of stories.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that I kind of point to when it comes to the character of the Punisher, where people get really antsy about nobody who's a good person would wear like a Punisher skull, or anybody who has one of those Punisher skull bumper stickers is going to be any type of good person, when it's people who kind of they long for that kind of pure justice.
Yeah.
That the people that can't be touched by modern bureaucratic justice because of their money or something.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's I'm just like, open a whole can of worms here. It's inherently American. We founded our country on a big FU to the biggest, baddest empire in the world at the time. And we're just like, screw you, pack up your crap, and go back across the ocean. We want nothing to do with you. And it's just like, that was emotionally the foundation of our entire existence. And for better or for worse, it has informed our culture in so many ways, in a lot of good ways and in a lot of bad ways. Because it is just that if you genuinely believe that the system is that broken, then what do you... I had this really good... So we, Dan is... you guys will hear him when we get to a special episode coming up. No, we've already had that episode. I apologize. But he and I had a great conversation one time around a campfire about, do you believe that there is a point where you are 100% justified in basically overthrowing the government? And if the answer is no, then you have to fundamentally believe that the foundation of this country was a mistake. And if you do think that there is a point where it is justified, that the line has been so crossed over, and you can go back and look at, what the British were doing, the taxation and, the different trigger things that happened back in the 1700s. And, okay, so were they justified or were they not? And if you say that they weren't, well then, okay, that calls into a really interesting question about just the entire existence of this country. And if you do think that they were justified, well then, okay, where's that line now? or
Yeah.
or has something fundamentally changed? I'm not even going to pretend like I have the answers to these questions, but I do think that they're interesting questions that for anybody who is born and raised in America and does appreciate this country and not that it's perfect, not even close. But anyways, it's just there's interesting stuff there, and those are concepts that matter to us as a culture. They're so fundamentally and deeply rooted in our national psyche that it makes sense that we have this theme over and over again in our literature, in our fantasies, in our mythos, right? Because that's what comic books kind of are. Anyways, sorry, I'm going to stop because I could keep talking about that all night, and that's not what this movie.
Yeah, this movie, man, the brutality.
Yeah.
Just switched over to a scene where we're going for these dreadlock guys here. McGinty's parkour group that are just ridiculous. But the first thing you see is a store clerk with a machete in his head, and it's like, oh, that's real brutal and real sudden. And it's I don't know, this. I keep trying to think about the stuff that you said because you're right. That is just a huge can of worms, and it is something I kind of want to talk about. But then won't discuss the movie.
Yeah, we
anymore.
won't. Yeah, I'm like,
That's not quite right.
I know that we also wanted to talk about some of this stuff a little bit more during the Thomas Jane one, and we just didn't get to it. So, but yeah, this whole scene though, oh my gosh! So coming up right here,
I love it. I love it. We have these parkour guys, and they're jumping over. One dude does a big parkour thing, and he just gets hit by a rocket and explodes into gory chunks. And there's the Punisher holding an M203.
That is a heck of a shot, by the way, with that thing.
Yep.
And it just brutally, just like, I do appreciate that this Punisher doesn't have like a lot of moments of, do I really want to shoot this guy, or like hesitancy? He just, nope. There is no, like, he sells so fully that he is completely down the road of, when I think somebody deserves to die, I don't have any, there's nothing holding me back. There's no like little voice in the back of my head going like, maybe you shouldn't do this. He's so far past that. And I appreciate that because
he hits this like weird accent jump with this character in this speech. He keeps going back and forth between like Jamaican and Irish.
Yeah, it's strange.
It's so strange. It's so strange.
Although
a lot of
this guy's death though is like coming up here in a second is like, ooh, it's brutal.
Yeah, and nice little convenient timing for these cops to be walking by right when Castle's having his good times with McGinty here. Let's see, where's it going?
Yeah, it's interesting here. We have this little heart to heart here in the middle of this just like really brutal interrogation and execution scene. And here we are with two, he's kind of opening up about his past, and they're talking about Frank, and it's just interesting placement for that conversation.
Well, that's one of the themes of this movie is that kind of redemption thing, because we were introduced to the character of Carlos while we were talking.
Oh gosh, he did.
The neck snap. He did.
He's very dead.
He got thrown off of a building onto some spiky gothic fence-looking thing, and then Frank broke his neck to
break his fall.
Kind of put him out of his misery. And we get this nice long scene going away as they of his head like dangling on a broken neck, and it's really gross.
We have like this
Do you
gratuitous
think that's like a Tombstone reference.
Maybe it was like this gratuitous long tracking shot of these guys like walking into this house with their guns out and stuff. It's just like, all right,
it's the villains, it's the bad guys.
Yeah,
they're so disparate in how they look. You have one guy who looks like he's part of My Chemical Romance. You have one guy who looks like he's out of Goodfellas. One guy's got this big scarred face, and the other guy looks like a boxer.
Well, and like in this scene, Jigsaw is like so dressed up. He's like in his best. And then that, like, just the whole like the jump shot as he like goes down, like it's almost like a gag, like at a Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something, where he's like, "How about you, sweet cheeks?" He's just like in this awful Italian accent. Like, what am I even watching right now?
His accent is so all over the place. And this guy, freeze, asshole! You're under arrest.
I do appreciate Frank's like fighting style as being very just. It's not overly fancy. It's just brutal and efficient. But he definitely
Yeah.
he's not like some kind of kung fu master. He's just a brawler.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. This really is the most pure form of Frank Castle in movies. Now that I've seen it, like, man, Ray Stevenson is such a good actor, and he really embodies this character well. He's just this no nonsense fighter.
Oh, you
For
would
those of you
not
out there
get
who
up,
might
by
be-
the way. Sorry, if your head was put into a car window like that, you wouldn't be like popping up off the ground. Be like,
Yeah.
I let's go again. Like, no, you're out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, totally right. I love how he just takes this guy apart in that moment when it's like he puts his face into a puddle and he just kind of holds it there for a second, like, are you gonna drown? Are you not gonna drown? And he handcuffs him to him.
Sorry, this shot of the two of them just like standing there, just like I feel like Frank could fix this situation really easily, but he's kind of just letting
Yeah.
this go a little bit.
Well, he just killed an FBI agent. He's not gonna hurt another one any more than he already has to.
Yeah, that's true because he saw his ID, so he came to know what this.
Yeah.
This whole just the other guy, just the way he's laughing in the background, everything. I'm just like, again, I don't. I'm
I don't
confused, Zach.
understand.
I'm confused, Zach. What is happening right now? And then these
We're
poor cops.
In
Oh
a
my
fever
gosh.
dream.
Yeah, we are. Oh, these poor
Oh, I
cops.
don't remember this scene.
So, yeah, they're like, these are the cops with the worst instincts ever. Is he like, yeah, well, watch this. They come up to the door. This guy answers the door. He's like, everything's not all right. Come on in. And they're just like, okay, just come on in. Like, I'm sorry. In the movie world, you guys deserve to get killed.
Yeah.
Look at this. Just watch
Like-
this for a second.
If it had been the other guy.
Follow me. Just
Follow me. Yeah, yeah.
and then they like
You know what?
and they turn their back to him. Just like, oh my gosh.
That's gonna be a no from me, Bob.
She,
At least they didn't do anything hinky.
well then
I
and then
love the
this
sword on the wall, though.
yeah, and then he like pushes her into it. It's like, oh man, they go out badly,
They do. They do.
and maybe that was the idea, but it was just still, yeah,
I think that part of it is the fact that, like, they are showing that there is an actual, like, response. The cops are doing something, even if they're just idiots.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not like these guys are going through this house. Surely somebody would have called the cops or something. She's like, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody did. They're taken care of. Um. Yeah. I just don't like her face.
yeah.
I blame Angel. Did you ever watch Angel?
I have seen all of Angel, but it has been a long time.
She's Angel's like ex-wife, his vampire
Yeah,
ex-wife.
I remember her being in the show, but that's one of those.
Mhm.
It's been long enough that other than the major story beats, I have forgotten about. Although I have
she's
heard
the one who has his kid.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I have heard in the last couple of years a very compelling argument to how Wesley is one of the most well-developed characters in the history of television, which I
would agree with that.
I
would
enjoyed
agree
very
with
much. Yeah. So here we go. He's
that.
going
I
to
did
like
not like Buffy, but I loved Angel.
Yeah. I liked parts of Buffy. But Angel I definitely thought was his superior show overall.
I love this.
Yeah.
Let me out.
He's just back there like just
Mhm.
But then later on, like the cop that goes in, like he references this, he's like, "There's no way somebody gets out of handcuffs," like he like makes it like that, the guy had to have let him go because there's no other way this could have gone. I'm like, who are you talking about? Like, are you again? Okay, we're gonna rack the shotgun because again, I couldn't have used it until now. Make a shell go out, people. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, you'll hear me talk about that continually on gun films. I just
No, you have
whole-
every right to talk about that. I always hate those little shotguns, though. They bother me.
oh, they're again. It's such a statement piece over anything. Like a shotgun can be a very effective weapon. Not that one though.
Yeah. Like, It's just going to be bad. It's going to be
This guy shooting the dolls.
Okay. This great scene of him shooting the dolls. They do such good character stuff with the villains and good character stuff with Frank. But then these little side characters outside of Soap and Mike. I mean, actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and amend my statement. They do great stuff with the characters in this movie.
Yeah.
It's just so disparate to one another. It's non-cohesive.
Yeah.
And
we got
this freaking kid.
This death coming up here is like, it was satisfying. I hated this kid.
Oh yeah, and you know he's gonna go do his cocaine, and there's Frank, and it's like he just put his fist through that kid's skull.
Yeah.
Like, you have any idea how hard that would be to do?
Yeah,
Like,
this skull is a very, very strong bone. Or
Yeah, like-
set of bones, but yes.
did that kid have like, you know, brittle bone disease or something?
This
But
though,
it's-
just like, oh my, sorry. See, that's like, it's comical. Like, just like,
Yeah, it really
gosh
is.
dang it, Castle. Just, you know, just. And this like we're in
Yeah.
the staircase. We're like, this is like an old western. All of a sudden, like, we're like laughing and shooting our guns through the staircase and just.
Yeah. No, I almost want a movie of Castle and Bukowski there, or
Mhm.
Budinsky. Just like having to hang out together.
Yeah, it's like a
You know?
like a 48 hours type movie or something. Just the two of them, just like stuck on
Yeah, just
like a
this-
stakeout.
Like a cop. I mean, think about how good the dynamic could be there. You have a cop who's going for redemption after being a dirty cop, having to pair up with this vigilante who killed his partner by accident, and all the stuff that you could play off of between the two of them, and adding in like this guy was a criminal, he was a dirty cop. That makes him a fair target for the Punisher. And what you could kind of do with to him, I don't know. I think that there's probably a script that they wrote out there where that was the main hook. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lost opportunity to me.
Yeah, but like here again, okay. So we just had this like over the top, half comedy, half serious action scene in the house, and then we're about to have just like this really, you know, tender moment here with Castle and this little girl, and
Yeah.
it's acted so well. And it's just this like this little girl is very charismatic, and Fred Stevenson, he does so much with so little.
Mhm.
You know, just like again, he's one of those actors you just watch his face, and he tells you so much without saying a word.
So Ray Stevenson, well, let's talk about Ray Stevenson for a second, because this guy, if you go on IMDb, the first things that what is he known for? The first thing they have on there is Porthos in the 2011 Three Musketeers, which is genuinely one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I'm like, no. He is in so many other things that is so good. I remember him in the Book of Eli. I remember him. I'm not a big fan of the show Black Sails, but he was so good. He was Blackbeard.
I never watched that
was
show,
in-
but
You shouldn't. He was in the movie RRR. That was quite a revolution for like Indian movies coming into the
Really?
American mainstream.
that's actually a movie I've been meaning to watch and just haven't gotten to yet. So
I mean, it's kind of a fantasy, so we could probably get away with it on here. We'd have to be a
'Cause I-
two-parter because it's very long.
well, and I do have a soft spot for musicals. So
hmm And also he was in Dexter and the show Rome.
that's right. Rome was like one of his big breakout moments, wasn't it?
Well, he was in several things where he just stood out as this deeply intense, terrifying man. But Rome, yeah, I would say that Rome is the big one.
Yeah. Because that show
But-
only lasted what, 1 or 2 seasons? Like it was a short-lived but acclaimed show, right?
Yeah, I think only 22 episodes.
But because I mean he had his small part in Thor. I know.
Yeah, Thor. All three Thors he
Yeah.
appeared in.
There's
Very briefly in Thor 3 where he gets murdered.
yeah, they were.
Bullshit.
I was definitely a little bummed that they.
Nice sneeze there.
I definitely was bummed about how his friends were taken out in those films. But
Yeah.
the and then of course, you know, obviously his was Ahsoka actually his final performance, or just his final?
Technically not. Yeah, for those who don't know, he appeared in the TV show Star Wars Ahsoka, and oh, he was so good. He was this, you could say villain. Yeah, I'd put him as a villain because he did murder like a whole bunch of Republic troops that were totally innocent. But he was so good in it. He had such gravitas
Yeah.
as this giant, deeply intelligent, but yet brutal, like big brute with a brain, former Jedi.
Yeah.
And we'll never get to know what happens with his character because because of him passing away. But his final role was in a direct to Amazon Prime movie with Kate Beckinsale called Canary Black, which was trying to be its kind of John Wick ish, Atomic Blonde ish thing that definitely wasn't taking cues from the DC character Black Canary. But yeah, that was his final thing. He died in the middle of filming that, and he was only 58 when he died.
He had cancer or something, didn't he?
No, I
was-
believe that he had a heart attack, but let me check on that.
So one of the things that I do think this movie is definitely guilty of is like this, the transition here into the third act is, it's frustratingly, it just takes narrative shortcuts and doesn't make a lot of sense. Where you have, I mean, the FBI here, in a police station apparently, just like, let Jigsaw, say like, okay, well, if you give us the shipment, we're gonna let you just walk away, and then we're also gonna like give you like the location of. I get the idea of like wanting Punisher to die because obviously the FBI has a real issue with Punisher after he killed an undercover agent, understandable, but just the total immunity as like for this guy, it just seems. It was done so quickly with so little lead up and just in a way it just kind of all happened off screen. In the way I thought it was just a lazy, quick way to get to where they wanted the movie to go, and it just was like it just bothered me.
No, I very much agree with that. You could tell that there was just something off with the script. There was more to all of this, but they moved forward with it anyway. But yeah, I also misspoke. Ray Stevenson didn't die making Canary Black. He died while filming. He died while filming a movie called it's some Italian thing, Casino in Isca, and it was filming in Italy, actually, with Rosario Dawson, who is in the other Punisher TV show. And his role was taken over by Dominic Purcell, who he's been in a few things. You recognize him. He was Dracula in Blade 3.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I love this, by the way. Eggs and cheese MRE. Now, there are certain MREs that I actually like quite a bit. Eggs are not good in MREs, and I love the honest opinion of this little girl. Just like, this is disgusting. Yes, it is. You are correct.
Oh, yeah. I mean, MREs themselves, I know that former military, of course, has fond memories of MREs, but dude, like the Chili Mac is kind of legendary in certain areas. To the
Chili
point
Mac is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. You like buy them online.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna like
obscene amounts of money.
It's not actually good, but I have good memories.
Did you know that MREs are specifically designed to stop up the?
Oh yeah.
Stop up the system.
Hey, there is nothing worse than having to, interrupt a firefight because you got to go, take care of some business.
Yeah. But yeah, here we have the reintroduction of character of Carlos, and it shows him kind of bonding with the girl. And yeah, this is a good little moment. You're right. I never really
like
thought about this girl being such a strong little presence in the movie. Very charming.
And this is Carlos's only real sequence like this, and when he unfortunately goes, and he does a great job with his little, like you were saying, so many characters have great moments. Like they really did a good job with the character building in this film. Again, just these two guys, these need their own movie. These guys need their own movie. If there was an entire movie in this tone that was very self-aware, I'd be down for it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's so funny. I went a decade or more remembering this movie as just a complete, horrible, disgusting joke of a movie. And then revisiting it now, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of really good things to this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it should be appreciated, but it also shouldn't be appreciated by everybody because this is not going to be everybody's movie.
No, but I do think that this is a movie that isn't as it definitely doesn't deserve the status as this isn't even close to the worst Marvel movie ever made. Not even in the top 5, I don't think.
No, I would not put it anywhere near Howard the Duck or Black Widow.
Yeah, I definitely think that this deserves to be changed to a yellow in our little spreadsheet.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree.
Aw.
Yeah,
That's just like, yeah.
Like, how did they know where to find them?
Well, so I'm assuming,
Micro.
they had Micro, yeah. So it's. Oh man, this is just. So this was one of the deaths I felt genuinely just bad for. And again, the idea that this guy's throwing out like the crazy. Now this him being crazy here and making the axe, the pun, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
was like this worked in this scene, just how brutal and disturbing it is.
Yeah,
and
because
it's
you don't. Part of it is the fact that in a movie that's so gratuitous in its violence that you don't see what's happening.
Yeah,
makes it worse.
Yeah, you're just imagining just the sheer trauma of that hit. So I would say
all this moves way too fast.
Yeah,
but I love the dynamic that they are setting up here with them. They got the immunity. I feel like there's something else that should have been cut out of this movie, or it should have been longer or something that they're able to develop that more. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, there's something so missed about the pacing of this movie.
What is his white jacket supposed to be being rained on a lot, or does it have a pattern on it?
It's a pattern. I think it's supposed to be a faux snake skin.
Okay. It's weird. The way it's lit, I couldn't tell if it was just supposed to be wet or pattern of some kind. So this is a great little scene here.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And this too, just the idea of I tried, just.
Yeah. It's just he knows enough about death.
It hurts real bad. Yep. That is a true statement.
Yeah, I almost want to watch this because this doesn't belong in this movie.
Yeah,
it's too good because the deliveries are all just real earnest, and I love this line.
Oh yeah, the if I see you in hell.
Yeah,
I'll kick your ass out. Yeah, I love that he covers his eyes and it's just there's that's this amazing moment of drama and character and just just some heck of good acting. I
also really don't think that they needed the gunshot.
No, they didn't. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What do you think of the colors in this movie? That's one of the things that's
very neon soaked.
Maligned.
I think it works a lot of the ways. I actually this church is just weird to me.
I love it. It's a visual style. I love it.
I mean, it's very it gets your eye, it gets your attention for sure. I don't know what kind of church this is because apparently it's Catholic, but they got it's Halloween night at the Catholic church. Something I don't know. The neon crosses, and they got the blue LED lights going up the stairs to the He's just like, all right,
We measured to you.
yeah,
Like he's butchering but quoting Matthew 7:2.
yeah.
Judge not lest ye be judged, type of thing.
I love this line though. He says it so well.
I'm just gonna listen. Sometimes I'd like to get my hands on God. You could say that it's blasphemous, but
from
you live in the world,
Yeah.
you
it's
see and experience things that other people, especially living in a nice cushy place like you and I do, can't fully understand, can't fully empathize with.
Yeah.
That there is a justification in that.
Well, I have as much as I firmly believe there is a very good answer to the question, how does a good God let so many bad things happen? I don't think that question is out of line. I think that question is totally legitimate, and that question is in some ways. It would be strange to not ask that question. If you look at the world for what it really is, it's a perfectly valid question. Now, I believe there's a perfectly valid answer, but I think that Christians who act like, oh, how could you even ask? Like, what do you mean? How could you not ask that? That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean more than, I would potentially say more than most people. My dad, who is considered a pretty decent theologian in and of his own self,
Yeah.
has a master's degree in law enforcement chaplaincy. And he wrote an entire book on Christian beliefs and evil. And I'm talking evil, the type of stuff that you deal with in law enforcement and such. And it's called Answering Evil. That's the title of his book. And it goes into that kind of thing.
Yep.
And they're important questions to ask, and it doesn't have the easiest answers.
No. One of my favorite.
And then all of a sudden you get this sequence.
Oh my gosh, you have like with a flag in the background. Yeah, I was gonna say really fast.
Patton.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite books ever written is C.S. Lewis's The Problem of Pain. Which is very much about that too, of just like, these are good questions, these are legitimate questions. But yeah, again, we just went from this intense, personal to like, again, we're like in a parody again all of a sudden.
Yeah. They have this thing where the villains here, brothers Jigsaw and Looney Bin Jim, are recruiting other gangs to come stay at their hotel because they're going to be attracting the Punisher, and they want them to ally with them while they take down this terrible thorn in their side.
You notice
and it's
too,
like a parody of the movie Patton.
It is,
you
but
have
also
the flag behind them.
Oh yeah, the flag. Do you notice too the different gangs, like just what total lazy cliches all the gangs are? The Asian gang, the black gang, the Irish gang. They're all sitting around a pool table with a massive neon, clover in the back. It's like what? Where do you think these hardcore gangs actually hang out? It's just, oh my gosh.
I have been in a bar that was owned by the Irish mob, and I gotta say, it is very Irish.
Yeah, but it's just I don't mind neon, but it's just that, and just everybody looks the same. Oh my gosh. Okay,
yeah, no.
I do not. So here's one of my I love shooting revolvers. I kind of hate it whenever they're in these kind of films because it's just they. Go ahead. It's right.
So I was watching this one thing. It was a guy who was a firearms instructor who was talking about sidearms and keeping guns. And it was just like, I carry 2 guns. I carry this gun. And he pulls out, it wasn't a Glock. It might have been a SIG, I think, that he keeps inside of an appendix carry. And it's just like, this is the one that I have. However, down here, I have an ankle holster. And in that ankle holster, I have this revolver. And you're like, why such an antiquated gun? It's like, because this thing does not jam. The moment that something goes wrong with this thing, I don't have time to clear a jam. I pull this out and I go to work because it is going to be more reliable than anything else. Yeah. And some dude presses himself against you. Say you're being assaulted. Say you're a woman who's being assaulted. If you press a slide pistol into somebody who is point blank range, if it all moves the slide, the gun will not fire.
And those
You
are
will not have that problem with a revolver.
Yeah.
So having a single revolver, especially in a situation like this, does make some tactical sense because it is going to be the most reliable backup you've got should your backup jam.
and there's I don't disagree broadly with your point, but not that revolver.
Oh, yeah, no, not that revolver.
Yeah. I'd say he's got like a sporting like target shooting, Olympic style revolver that's all about just precision and like taking 5 minutes for every shot because you're you're not in a tactical situation. No, it
is such a strange revolver. It's a Smith & Wesson Model 500. And this thing, it's like it has the back of like a Smith & Wesson, 50 cal or 44, maybe even a 357, but the barrel is like compensated and fluted. It's a really strange
it's a sporting revolver, and it just absolutely does not belong in a hardcore tactical situation. But
yeah,
I do it. Oh man, sorry, I'm like caught up in this a little bit. There's such a mixture of like cool guns and just like guns I would never want, like dual wielding 1911s. And granted, they got this is probably Micro's like all of his guns that they have there. Right.
No, well, they just recruited these gangs, and these gangs are just.
Well, he when he was
violent gangbangers.
Yeah, but what I mean is that
they all have their own guns.
Well, kind of, but I mean, but he said when he was recruiting him, he said, you're going to be well armed. Like he implied he was going to supply them with guns. So I'm assuming that he basically like, took all the Micros. Okay, so this opening, like when the Russians go in here,
mm-hmm.
It's so strange to me that kind of never makes it out of the lobby. Like the Russians are like, they're so bad. They go in, they kind of catch these guys off guard, and then they kind of all get taken out pretty easily, which I thought was an interesting choice. Granted, you need Frank to be the main, the main guy that gets it done. Yeah. But
you need the slight believability of he's what do you call it? He needs help dealing with all these guys.
Yeah.
Mixed with the fact that he's still got to be the big guy.
Yeah. Although I will say his we did talk about in the Thomas Jane film that we wished that his trip to the main villain had a little more going on, was a little bit longer, had him taking out more guys. And this film does make up for that, I'll say. And for the most part, I actually enjoy a lot of Frank's decisions. Like, I mean, and that's again where it's an interesting mixture of like good sound tactical stuff and then just oddball, like, all right, a Hollywood person thought this would look cool and that's why he did that.
Yeah. So what do you think of the garb of the Punisher? This very body armor heavy tactical
I don't mind it.
A lot of people gave criticism to the neck guard because that's not something you ever saw in a Punisher thing.
It's very practical. I mean, it's very practical. And I love the fact that it's not tight because you still need to be able to move your neck and move around and not get, hung up. Oh, ouch. But no, I mean, aesthetically, I think Thomas Jane just looked amazing. And it doesn't make any sense to have your arms bare. Like tactically, it actually is kind of stupid, but he looked so good that I didn't mind. I think Ray Stevenson looks good. I like his armor. It's an odd profile because we're so used to a certain look, but it works. I like it.
Yeah. I have come to love it when I first saw the armor in the first images of Ray Stevenson, because I was very into movies when this was coming out. And I was just like, he looks so stupid. And like I hated the neck guard and everything like that, but I have come to just love this look.
It looks better in motion to me than it does in a still.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. And I love how practical it is. Like literally, I watched a couple of breakdowns of this movie and like the tactics in it, the gunplay, things like that. And with the exception of, like, he needs a helmet. Like, they all need like,
Yeah.
heroes never have helmets in these things.
Well, no.
With the exception of a helmet, this is actually a really good representation of what somebody in his situation would do and need in order to be combat effective.
I will say that was a really dumb way to do entry into it. It looked cool, but just saying.
It's very, very Bourne Ultimatum.
Very. Also, too, he did not get near. I love that he. Oh man, I actually love the fact that he goes around a corner correctly, where you go around ready to shoot the instant you get a target. This whole swing your gun around a corner Hollywood BS. It's just like that's an easy way to get killed.
Yeah.
Oh man, I actually kind of like that. Just a guy's reaction there. Although we do have those diesel and gasoline filled grenades. I love those versus real grenades, which is just a pop.
Yeah. So I was. This sequence to me stood out because he's doing the hallway thing. The great, like that's why you clear your doors and corners, dude.
Yeah.
We just had him burst through a thing, and he hits a thug behind the door, and he doesn't realize the thug is there. He takes out one guy. The thug shoots him from behind, hits his flak jacket, but he shoots him.
Yeah. If he hadn't had good body armor there, that would have been it. End of the movie.
Yeah. But what I was saying, though, is this is like a big hallway action sequence. He's making his way down a hall, killing the crap out of all these thugs, and some of it's really good, some of it's not great, like that last sequence with the fully automatic pistols.
Yeah. He is reloading. I appreciate he's reloading.
Mm-hmm. And the sound effects of the suppressor are actually pretty good.
Yeah, they're not horrible. The fact that he's firing on fully auto is a little bit. He should be, it should be a little.
Oh, I thought it was burst.
Well, I mean, he's shooting it. I love that he stops and listens here. No, he is firing in bursts, but auto bursts. Definitely not 3 bursts. I mean, it's a good balance between, Hollywood and real. Okay, right here though, the fact that he didn't have something in his launcher already is a little bit odd to me.
Well, didn't he already use one?
No, not in the launcher. That is not what a grenade that does what that just showed would have absolutely killed him. Also, by the way, just saying.
Yeah, the overpressure, man.
Oh yeah.
But what I was saying about the hallway thing, I was just
the double jigsaw like brass check, by the way, actually was pretty good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. That was good on Dominic Purcell. The hallway sequences become kind of a legendary thing. We had one with like Daredevil, Luke Skywalker, John Wick, like them going down a hallway and just killing people left and right, and like big moments surrounding hallway scenes in superhero stuff and action stuff have become a huge thing lately.
I do love that.
This
Sorry,
predates them all.
Yeah, I love that right there. He stopped and he reloaded his guns and put them back in his holster. Like that's a small detail that I just yeah, I love that stuff.
Oh, the raid. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, right there. The gratuity, man. The gratuity. Just had a guy's head blown off in the most exaggerated fashion possible. But did you see the thing about Ray Stevenson's quote unquote training when it came to guns for this movie?
I did not see that video, no.
They hired a he trained with a bunch of Marines for one, but they hired this like professional gun guy to come in, do all this teaching. The director actually participated in it because she does that type of stuff professionally. Herself. He already knew it all. He came in and immediately started working with the guns and breaking them down before they even started the actual class and training. And they're like, well, we got our work cut out for us on this one. This dude is like a legitimate gun handler, unlike most actors. He knows how to handle, he knows how to reload, he knows how to do things tactically.
Yeah.
And he brought so much of his own skill and physicality into this role. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, no, as much as I don't love all the gun stuff in this film, his handling of guns, for the most part, is very good. Definitely way above average for your Hollywood action star.
I like this fight. This fight, like, they have it where he jumps him. We have Looney Bin Jim fighting him now, and Looney Bin Jim, he's got the crazy strength, which is also referred to as other types of strength by some less couth people. But he's crazy, just utterly nuts. And then you have this moment where you remember, oh, Ray Stevenson's like 6'5".
Yeah, he's a bit
has
strong
100
dude.
pounds on this guy, and he's like throwing him around the bathroom.
Yeah, he's just I love it, just the brawling.
Mm-hmm. And now we have the climax.
Yeah.
The true like moment. It's the choice. You know, is he going to choose his best friend, or is he going to choose the wife and daughter of the man that he killed by accident?
What do you think of the gratuitous use of lasers on his guns? I'm not a big fan, so I'm just curious.
Was that Castle's gun with the laser?
Yeah.
Oh, it just lost a point. Laser aiming is incredibly effective. I don't think there has ever been like a straight up red laser, like able to be that visible type of thing.
You would have to have
there's a laser dot.
Yeah, you would have to have so much smoke in this room.
Yeah. Lasers are not visible like that. A laser dot scope can be really useful, especially for home defense, so you know where you're aiming. But the majority of laser sights these days are IR laser sights, so that people with a IR laser, infrared visors and infrared sights and stuff like that can see the laser, but nobody else can. And so you get really good team cohesion and being able to see where your team members are aiming. You can see where you're aiming, but nobody else can.
Well, it's also a huge part of coordination with aircraft these days for spec ops teams, and just pilots being able to. Yeah, it's all. Yeah. So, I do appreciate. Okay, so a lot of times in climaxes, I feel like there's an obvious thing that the hero should have done. Like, okay, there's an obvious solution to this problem or way out of this that you're choosing not to do because the movie, wants this moment. The way that this actually set up, a little more solid than average, I have to say, as far as he doesn't have a ton of options here. It's not like he's ignoring a really easy option. Because when he first walked in, it was like, okay, what are you gonna? And here he makes that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Although I would have said, oh, he does throw. Okay, I was about to say he should throw the gun though.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like there was a glaringly obvious choice. I also appreciate here that they do have a little brawl, but ultimately Jigsaw is not even remotely like a physical threat to Castle hand to hand.
Yeah.
Like the Looney Boon, yeah,
Looney Boon.
Looney Boon. It was that the brother was a they had already established that he was more dangerous physically. Jigsaw's not. I just appreciate the fact that they just kind of gave you the satisfaction of watching Frank Castle beat the crap out of this guy.
And also not get carried away and remember the girl. They use it as an emotional beat as well, which I appreciate. Yeah. If I was doing this, if I wanted there to be a little bit more of a confrontation between the two of them, I would have given him a crowbar. Because a crowbar would be like a, they established that this guy is trained, he's not he's not a physical threat, but he's also not a schlub, know? So giving him like a blunt weapon, like a crowbar or something, could have made for an even fight, and they do it a little bit here with this fence post.
Yeah. Been skewered and barbecued.
Mm-hmm. But that kick to the back.
That'd be
the crunch.
Yeah, your spine ain't happy.
This is very much a Punisher thing, though.
Yeah, they really
to do.
Yeah, they really let this go for a while too.
Mm-hmm. Because the stuff that the Punisher tends to do to his enemies in the comics, sometimes it's quick. It's just a planted bomb. Or something like that, but a lot of times, oh my goodness, it's just brutal.
Yeah.
Man, there was one. It was like a whole bunch of people who were part of this conspiracy. This was the Barracuda storyline, which is effed up in its own ways, and they're all on a yacht together, and he blows a bomb on the yacht in shark-infested waters so that it sinks, and they have nowhere to go, and he sabotages the life rafts, and they all get eaten by sharks. It's like,
Okay. So I was,
that's just type stuff that he does.
yeah. I thought this was very, I don't know, I get what they were going for with this moment with the wife, but I just, maybe because like you said, I didn't love her portrayal, and I think there was a more, I don't know, this didn't land for me. The
I
girl
agree.
waving does, but the wife, yeah, the wife just doesn't land emotionally.
I think that it's also just the delivery. I think that a different phrasing of it, but the kind of weird desperation is more realistic, sure. But I think it needed to be said with a little bit more tragedy. It needed to be said with a little bit more gravitas. So it's like a very active, almost sad forgiveness
Yeah,
that she's kind of giving him what she knows he needs.
yeah.
I guess you could say.
So this whole
Hmm.
this whole like ending here, just I mean, I like the idea of him disappearing. I kind of like that. I actually didn't. I was kind of caught off guard that this is how they just ended the movie, with just him being like all the criminals are dead. Just to have one he gets mugged right here, and then just like Frank, and then just the Jesus saves in neon on like I think it's a juxtaposition of the neon on like this very classic cathedral. It's just
Yeah.
an
I don't know,
interesting.
I like the neon with the cathedral. I know that you were talking about a weird church interior earlier. I love that whole setup there.
Oh, this poor guy.
This guy.
Oh, this is a good shot of him right here. I will say that for sure. He's got a good silhouette.
Frank. Yeah, there's just this cross that says Jesus saves. And it's already trying to autoplay A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, mine did too. I did love the fade out of leaving this skull just for a hair there at the end. It was like saves and then Punisher skull. Like that is more effective than the flaming cars making the skull for sure.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things about this movie that I was going to bring up, I actually had the first poster that came out for this movie. I had that as a background on my phone for a while. Did you ever see the first poster for this movie?
I think so. It said
It's the Punisher skull, and it's made up entirely of bullet holes in like a wall or a piece of metal.
let me check really fast.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Hey, can you hear me?
I lost you.
Okay.
1 second.
The
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
I think yes. Yeah, it's a good. Now I don't like the Punisher skull. Like I do think that the iconic one that was done for the Thomas Jane film, I think was just a better design. This one I think is too symmetrical, if that makes sense. I like the slight lack of symmetry.
I don't know, but take a look at this thing. Okay, I just texted it to you.
Yeah, well, I think I found it.
If you were to Google Punisher Warzone poster, most of them are just going to be like the vague silhouette of.
Yeah. No, that's that is pretty good.
Like a white wall riddled with bullets in the shape of the Punisher skull.
Yeah,
and it looks good.
Yeah, that does look good. I
think it's a great poster. I think it's like a perfect Punisher poster.
Yeah. No, I've said versions of this already a few times.
It is something else.
Yeah, I did not think there was a shot in hell.
Funny, it's heartfelt, it's gratuitous, it's kind of gross.
Yeah. Well, I think Roger Ebert famously said that this movie is disgusting.
Yeah.
But it's I was gonna say though that I said this last week. I love Thomas Jane. I just love him as an actor. I really love him as the Punisher, and I didn't think there was a shot that even though Ray Stevenson is a great actor, that his Punisher could even come close to competing. And I'm highly biased, so I'm sure that's part of this. As much as Thomas Jane still has it for me, Ray Stevenson made some really deep inroads throughout and seeing this movie twice in 2 days is really interesting because you really get to absorb all the details. And I liked him very much. I would have enjoyed, I think, again, a movie that could kind of pick its tone. And I mean, I do think that Punisher needs to be a little more serious. I think the villains should have been a little more, just a little more intensely serious. Not like, self-gratuitous, dramatic, I'm trying to win an Oscar here, but that if you asked me this on a lot of films, how would you fix this movie? I think I would have just gotten the tone evened out a little bit. I think I would have
stealing my bit.
I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. You can say it.
So Brian, how would you fix this movie?
See, I like this, so especially on bad movies. And this isn't a bad movie, but like on movies that put it this way, on movies that need work. There are movies that need no work. Wrath of Khan needs no work. This movie is a good movie, but it needs some work. And it's getting the tone evened out a little bit longer, not a lot longer. I still would not go past the 2-hour mark. I think an intense, action-heavy, dramatic, like kind of oppressive, thematically, oppressively themed film like this needs to be kept shorter because it just gets fatiguing if you go too long. But you could have added 15 or so minutes and still have been under the 2-hour mark. You could have explored a little more of just the relationship Frank had with Micro. You could have had a little bit more on who punishes the Punisher. You could have had a little more on, I think, just the relationship between the FBI and the personal motivations for letting Jigsaw go because he's the guy in charge is give him like a personal connection. The agent who was killed, kind of make that a little more cohesive, flesh that out a little bit. What would motivate him to let someone like Jigsaw go and get immunity other than just, oh, you killed an FBI agent, so I'm going to let this obviously psycho go. There's some ways to flesh that out. I think a little bit more of Frank and the two cops and Snow and what's the other guy's name? I already forgot the character's name, but I mean, just a little.
And
Budinsky, yeah, a little more. The three, I think the three of them were great. I would have tightened up the tactical stuff a little bit and just fully committed to like we're really going hard, like accurate tactical special forces, type stuff, and had like saved the flashy weird stuff for the villains. I think Frank works better in a little bit more cold, kind of all black way. Personally, I know it's very that's up to whoever your opinion is. It's just my personal preferences, and I would have given Ray Stevenson more dialogue. He did a fantastic job when he wasn't talking, but it just would have given him some moments to really converse a little bit. And I think either Micro or even the kid, the idea of I forget his name, Carlos or no,
Carlos.
Yeah, I think that actually, if they had one more good, because I mean, Frank's first opinion of him of just like thinking, I've never seen a banger come back, they just, he dismisses him immediately, and Micro's like, no, this guy's, he's really straight, he's really, one of the good ones now. I think if you had one more scene with the two of them, doing something, having some interaction, establishing that, Frank's his assumptions, his biases are challenged a little bit. The things that he just assumes are right, and that the way the world works, that would have been an interesting way to kind of challenge him a little bit, and also had just another little character moment, and it would have made the death scene even more impactful because you would have had a little more relationship established between these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go on, but you've said this before, and I completely agree with you. Without saying, well, I would just make a different movie. I think that there is a version of this film that would be remembered extremely well.
Yeah. I'm of a similar mindset. Part of me kind of says that how to phrase this? This is two movies that are rolled into one that really should have been one or the other or two different movies.
Yeah.
I love the over the top neon flashy colors, the grotesque brutality of it without being like Saw level gross. And I really like all that stuff, and pulling in even some of like the weird stuff from the comics, like McGinty. But I feel like that clashes with the really serious potential themes and performance by Ray Stevenson. I want a movie that has a slightly comedic edge, that is Ray Stevenson's Punisher with Micro, with Carlos, with Budinsky, and with Soap. And they all they're bouncing off of each other. You have the friend, you have the distrusted kid, you have the jaded cop trying to find redemption, and you have the fanboy cop. And you can kind of work all these together as they're dealing with a more serious villain in a little bit less flashy, though I would say still stylized fashion.
It's still,
with a tighter script and more character moments.
Yeah.
And then there's the other movie. There's the over-the-top villains, the flashy lights, the crazy comic book stuff. But in order to have that, you need a Punisher who belongs in that world a little bit more. You know, you hire somebody like, I'm not saying hiring somebody like Adam Sandler or something, but who's an actor that would work for that?
Okay, you
don't need a specific actor, but you need him to be just a little bit more like more serious, more sarcastic, and a little bit almost like wink at the camera sadistic.
I cannot remember his name. Did you see gosh. He's famous for Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. He's the main guy.
Right.
He's Saul.
That guy?
Well, did you see his action film?
Nobody?
Yeah.
Not the whole thing.
So it just like literally just popped in my head. It's Bob Odenkirk.
Bob Odenkirk.
I weirdly think that there's that he could do that. That he could hit those comedic beats and find that balance. Because again, he did it constantly. I mean, I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I think they're just phenomenally written television shows. And he walked the line between the drama and the comedy so well, in my opinion. And nobody proved that he also could do some action.
Yeah.
It'd just be interesting.
Sorry, when you said nobody proved, I'm like, nobody proved what? And then I'm like, oh, the movie
movie Nobody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just in the comedy one that you're talking about. It was coming to me like that he could. And because if you put him in the right outfit and gave him the right haircut, I think that he could look okay in the gear.
That is so weird. That is so weird. For some reason, the type of Punisher that I'm thinking of, like, I don't necessarily want an actually comedic Punisher, but if you're thinking about with me, I should say. But thinking about a Punisher that would fit into a movie with those other two guys, the way that Ray Stevenson just doesn't fit into a movie with this Jigsaw and the completely original character, actually. It's not from the comics at all of Looney Bin Jim. But somebody almost like Nathan Fillion, who can deliver some poignant stuff, but still have like one-liners and be a little bit more on the nose and make it a little bit more of a buddy cop thing between him and like have him handcuffed half the movie to the other guy, or what's his face, what's that at Mad Men?
John Hamm.
John Hamm. Oh, John Hamm would be a perfect Punisher, and he is funny.
Yeah.
like you would need somebody to kind of wink at the camera and be a little bit funnier. Stevenson is the perfect Frank Castle.
Oh, yeah. He's
like comic book accurate Frank Castle. I still enjoy. I think of all of them, I enjoy Barenthal's the most, even if he's a little bit more of a safe version of the character for today's political climate.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the quality and the evolution and the action and just how the music to his portrayal of the Punisher, his discussions about morality with Daredevil in Daredevil season 2 is so good. I just can't. There's some people out there who are really mad and say that he's like a neutered version of the character, which I don't agree with.
I wouldn't agree with that either.
But even with Thomas Jane's fantastically charismatic performance, and like I honestly think that Thomas Jane may now be my like least favorite portrayal, like of the Punisher himself. Actually, I can't even say that. All three of them are so good in their different ways.
Yeah,
they're like all on par. They're all three of them are so great.
Well, that's where I feel like if you had
Stevenson's just so good, I can't get over it.
Yeah, no, they're if you took, well, that's where I think Thomas Jane and Ray Stevenson, either one of them, if you dropped either one of them in the right Punisher movie, I think they would have blown us away. I think either one of them were perfectly capable of doing that, and would have.
Even in the wrong Punisher movie, they blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they would be remembered. Yeah, I think that they both could be remembered in the right Punisher film as being just up there in those iconic roles, casting decisions that just stick with you for decades because they are.
Yeah,
they're just great. So this is one of those movies. It's always a shame when you see kind of potential. This movie, even as it stands, it didn't deserve to be as low grossing as it did. I mean, again, the year it came out, it was just up against the
Titans.
Yeah, I mean, you got the launch of the MCU. You have, arguably one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, and it's just like, yeah, all right. What do you? I mean, and when it talked, and also too, it comes to like kind of a mad villain. I mean, you're also, as a villain, you're being compared to the Oscar-winning performance of Heath Ledger. Like, what are you supposed to do? And not that was a choice, obviously, but it's. I almost think that this movie would have been done if it had come out like 2 years earlier. I think it would have been not better done, like better received. I think that if it had just a tiny bit earlier.
Funny.
You think later?
Because the other, to an extent, maybe. Because the other Punisher movie, I feel like 2006 would have been the perfect time for a Punisher movie, because Thomas Jane's Punisher movie, everybody said, oh, if this had come out 2 years later, it would have been more well received. And you're saying, if this had come out 2 years earlier, it would have been more well received.
Would have been 2006.
Agree with.
Yeah.
It's just like, I forgot how close these two were together.
Yeah.
The 04 and the 08. And it's only 4 years, which is not a lot.
No.
But it's like, given that we had to wait another 10 years for a Punisher appearance.
Yeah.
It's
it's a
heck of a thing.
Yeah, and you said this earlier to a certain extent, but I would agree with it. This might shock anybody who's like, oh my gosh. As of right now, if I was just going to rate my Punisher portrayals, I'd still have Tom Jane's first, but I would put Ray Stevenson, and I'd actually put John Barenthal last for me. And I don't mean that as that he did a bad job. I think he's a good actor, and I think he did a good job. But
yeah,
I would rather if you were like, who do you want to see play it again? I mean, obviously, rest in peace. But can't have. I mean, I would pick. I'd want them to get a shot again, way faster than I'd want to see more of John's Punisher.
And time of recording, we're going to be seeing more of John Barenthal's Punisher in March of next year.
Yeah.
And next year is only like 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to say, because and if they do another Punisher in the future, it's going to be probably an actor that we don't know anything about. Probably going to be totally different. Oh, there's so much I could say on this. I want to end with this, just going back to a little bit more of our more serious discussions. Do you think that there is room for a character like the Punisher in today's media who is accurately portrayed as the cold, methodical, extrajudicial killer?
I think it's really
That he always
tricky.
has been.
Yeah, I think it's really tricky. I think that you. No, I honestly don't. I think that when you make it modern, you really it's so difficult because we live in such a. I mean, things are they're just getting worse, right? They're just getting charged. You know, you mentioned the the murder of the CEO of the health insurance organization, and I do not want to walk down this road any further than just to say the reaction by many people at the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Whether you hate him or love him, the idea that so many people were like, oh, good, too bad he didn't miss. He wasn't successful. That we're getting into an era where that kind of stuff is spoken aloud without hiding, behind some kind of like, no, you just no. I'm just on social media. Everyone knows who I am, and I feel completely comfortable saying, I wish he had succeeded. I mean, you go back to some of the other big Martin Luther King, JFK, John Lennon. I mean, those are the three off the top of my head, like really famous assassinations.
RFK.
Yeah, RFK too, and those people weren't universally loved. I mean, Martin Luther was pretty close, but nobody would have dared, been like, "Yay," at least not out loud. And again, I'm not saying that they're as controversial as someone like Donald Trump is, or a healthcare CEO, but it does say something about where our society is going. That the conversation around that kind of thing is so tricky, and I think that I think it's much easier to get away with a John Wick type character because you kind of it's like fantasy, right? You almost can remove it from the real political situation, a real societal situation, because all right, this is a fantasy. This is his dog got murdered, and we're going to create this weird mythical assassin society and all that, and so hyper violence and somebody just taking matters into their own hands in that setting is very different.
Very different.
And even if you go back to, we mentioned 24 last week with Pat, and kind of the Jack Bauer comparisons, that was back early 2000s, 9/11 had just happened. So somebody who, like, for the sake of like stopping terrorism, kind of really pushes the boundaries of what's acceptable. At the time, that was, you had a lot of people like, no, like they just that the national attitude was different. You couldn't do that now. It would be just radically different because society just has shifted. What we are worried about is, and so I think that it would. I'll put it this way to answer your question, and then shut up. Could we do it? Sure. Would it be widely accepted and popular? I don't think so.
Yeah, I feel like it would be overly polarizing because right now one of the big polarizing things, even for my own self, is that there's this adoption of the Punisher logo by law enforcement. You have not like official law enforcement, but you have people. They have the Punisher skull with the blue line through it to be like law enforcement officer, and Punisher stuff. There's like this association between the two of them that is, in my opinion, as a huge comic book fan and as somebody from a law enforcement family, I think it's unhealthy.
Yeah,
because the Punisher represents the failure of the justice system, the failure of law enforcement to enact justice, to rein in brutal, life-destroying crime. So I think that there is a version of the Punisher that could work really well by today's standards. But we've gone into a mindset culturally that all forms of killing are bad, which controversial take. I'm pro capital punishment for absolutely provable things like rape and first degree murder and stuff like that. I think that there is an area where death as a mercy to person and society is better for society.
Mm.
So to be able to kind of display that as like, this is the ultimate form of desperation by a person who just wants to make the world a better place, where these institutions are completely and totally non-effective. And it's just like living close to an area where you have that very same thing going on, where law enforcement is practically useless. They're just like glorified crossing guards, while you have guys setting up tents across from elementary schools, literally with a sign that says free fentanyl.
Yeah.
There's like this core desire almost that somebody like the Punisher could exist, and almost like you do want to threaten those people with this idea of like, oh, mess with me, I've got this Punisher skull bumper sticker for a reason. And I don't actually want there to be a Punisher. I don't want people to really take that to heart. But to kind of be able to have a character that you can put in media that scratches that itch and puts the thought in the head of people that this is not a good thing for our society. But there's a reason that people want to see this. There's a reason that people kind of like this.
Oh, yeah.
And it needs to kind of warn people about what humans will eventually do when they are either like pushed too far or neglected.
Yeah.
In safety.
I think one of the keys to doing it right is you have to have, because I think the people they relate to and they see a broken system and they want it fixed, but they also, the one thing I will say that this movie did well, one of the things it did well was Frank's, he didn't want to, it's not like he loved being the Punisher. He was a very like, this is like, I'll do this, but this is awful. And you need that, because you need even the person doing the horrible things to be aware that the fact that this has to happen is such an indication of how broken things are, and that the ultimate, like, I shouldn't be needed, and the best outcome would be I'm no longer needed. That's an element you need to be able to have any kind of like cheering on of this kind of a character. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that fairly well. I mean, it's funny, they never really said that out loud, but he definitely gave you that in spades in just his performance. And it's
tough.
It is.
Heavy themes.
But again, it gets to the whole, well, if you think things are that broken and you think at a certain point it's justified, okay, well, what does that look like? Where is that line? And then how fixed do you need things before you then stop it? Like, because you're never going to make anything perfect again, but like, so what's the things are good enough again where I can walk away? Like, it's effective because it's real, and because everybody who has two eyes and a brain, looks around, can see that things are not the way they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, the systems are complicated for a reason, because if you made them super easy and straightforward, you would have a whole nother, ball of problems if the justice system was just this quick and easy, we're just going to pass judgment quickly. We're going to let cops, really push the boundaries for the sake, it's just, you can't. Yeah. So even though this is, I'm going to jump ahead a tiny bit here, I don't know, this isn't even on the calendar, but it's on our list, and it's not a sci-fi or fantasy film, but I appreciate you have it on there. I think we have Tombstone on our list at some point. And I want to talk about Wyatt Earp, because there's actually a really interesting, I think, conversation about the historical person and the portrayal of him and these themes. So I'll just leave that as a teaser for one day. I look forward to having that conversation because I think that that's another, partially a real piece of history, but also a really interesting kind of way into Law and Order and the system versus not, and somebody who actually in real life kind of did both, and how that looked and what the consequences were. And anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I understand completely. It is one of those complicated things, and you know what I think that they could do that would satiate both sides of the main controversy in modern day around the Punisher, and I'll end with this. What if they did a Punisher movie that was him going after a massive cabal of corrupt cops? Because
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a thing there. I think that you could upset both sides incredibly and have a really interesting message.
Well, I think, yeah.
Like it would be the Punisher, pure comic book Punisher, but it would be breaking the blue line.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm for the most part, a supporter of law enforcement. I also believe that law enforcement who becomes corrupt and breaks their oath that they're sworn to uphold should be actually held to like triple the punishment of a regular criminal.
100%.
Yeah.
I love law enforcement. Law enforcement is desperately needed, but gosh, you have a sacred trust with the public because we are handing you the authority and the means to deal death, to deal justice, to take. We're trusting you as a society. We're saying, here you go. We are going to put this massive responsibility in your hands, and we're going to trust you to do it. And when you break that trust, it should be a big freaking deal. And even small breaches of that trust, I absolutely think that cops should be celebrated and very well funded, and they should also be held to a really high standard.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
yeah,
we should we keep saying we're episode. We should though, because we're hitting the 2.5 hour mark here easily. But yeah. But this has been a lot of fun. This is another one of those films, kind of like Spawn, although I think this is a better movie than Spawn. That surprised me in a way that I enjoyed. Like it was a good surprise, and I'm, we're going through this podcast together, and it's been fun because there are films I either haven't seen in a long time or movies that I was meant to watch and never did, and it's been there's been several of those this year. We're kind of wrapping up recordings for 2024, and it's been good, my friend. I'm having a good time. I'm glad we're doing this, and something like this, I probably on my own never would have watched this, and that would have been sad. I'm glad I did. So there you go.
Yeah, I spent a decade and a half with this movie in my head as garbage, and revisiting it, I have found an imperfect gem.
Yeah. This
deserves cult classic status, and with that, I'll say goodnight, everybody, because otherwise I'm going to keep talking about it again.
I know. Good night, everybody.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow, that room will eat you.